What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Active Self-Protection. I am Christopher Bean from Tactical Advantage, and today we are going to talk about the Mary and the support hand.
The Storm Hunter WX weather app is free to download and use and provides you with warning of severe weather even before the National Weather Services issue alerts. This advanced weather app is an important tool for awareness of severe weather that I use every day. Download and use it totally free without in-app purchases on iOS or Android at the link below.
So far, we've really been talking about developing speed, being efficient, but today we're really going to talk about making your draw stroke more repeatable and more effective and prepared for follow-up shots. So really, what we need to kind of get into is talking about the support hand and where we get that on the gun in our draw stroke. So I think what happens a lot is people think their primary hand, being the stronger of the two hands that they have, is really the one that does the most work during shooting. But that's actually counterintuitive, because if you can get two hands on the gun, the support hand is really going to do the most work. So really, we want to kind of delve into a little bit on how to get that on the gun effectively, where and when we do that, and the best way to apply grip without really going into the rabbit hole of grip. Grip in and of itself, we could have multiple videos just talking about that. So this is going to be a relatively high level idea, just talking about the wheres and whys and some things for you to think about. So first things first, from a Mary perspective, we want to get that support hand on the gun as soon as possible in the presentation, and that allows things to kind of settle and get where they need to be so we can acquire an accurate and good solid sight picture. So what I try and do, and I have to think about this actually quite often, because when you're really trying to cook and go fast, there's a tendency for the support hand to come on late. So what you may see from that is like a right-left deviation of shots, because what's happening, and we'll kind of do this kind of slow, is we get the primary hand on the gun come out, and then we're chasing. We're chasing with that support hand, and what will happen is right when we get to full extension is when the support hand will meet, and that'll normally drive the gun right if you're a right-handed shooter, left if you're a left-handed shooter, and then you'll see an overcorrection to the opposite side. So maybe a little bit quicker, it'll look something like that. And we'll do it this way too. And that's not what we want. So what I try and think about is kind of where you clap your hands. That's kind of a natural spot on where you want to kind of get that Mary or that support hand on the gun. And that gives you all this time with the gun well supported, not quaking, no upset activity. And that looks kind of like this if we're going to go like maybe right here. And it looks really stable versus this. You guys see that? I hope you do. And you see how we get kind of a muzzle deviation when we come on late, and that requires correction. No matter how you slice it, a correction will need to be made, unless you just get lucky with your dot or your sights. So we'll go here again. So when we're effective, efficient, organized, it's going to happen somewhere in this ballpark. Really depends on your physiology. That may be a little further out, maybe a little bit closer. Just what we don't want is at the end of the presentation. So one more time, full speed. And one more time, we'll exaggerate the late Mary. And you know what also happens too, when you have that late Mary, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a tendency to leave an open spot there, because kind of the gun is forcing into the support hand instead of the support hand coming in an organized fashion. So that's kind of the first part of it. So really how you can do that, you don't even need to draw your gun. You can almost mimic the motion and start understanding where, from a proximity point of view, that should happen for you. Not hard to do. And what I've done a lot, and people look at me kind of funny, is I'll just be walking around and kind of thinking through that and not that. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, let's talk about how grip gets established on the gun, or where we want the grip to be. And we've already kind of talked about getting the gun out with your support hand. Where you put your thumb is really kind of up to you. All you really want to do is make sure you have a good solid amount of real estate somewhere to put that support hand. So for me, like you've seen in the other videos, my thumb actually rests on the side of the gun when I actually get it out with my strong hand, but I still have a relatively good area to kind of connect. And what I'm doing is just getting that in that spot. So with that being said, we have the gun in line with some of our bone structure on my strong side. So the gun, the recoil forces are actually traveling down my arm, and we have a good portion of meat actually behind it. So what's happening with that support hand is I'm trying to fill in all that other available space. So one thing I used to do is I used to actually put my index finger on my support hand in front of the trigger guard, and I started noticing some weaknesses with that. So again, you may have injuries, you may have things that are causing you to do certain things, and that's fine. I absolutely understand that, and any technique that works better for you is a better technique. However, you need to kind of think through those things to understand why you're doing it, and it's not necessarily just from a comfortability standpoint. People in general have a tendency to lend themselves to thinking that actually is counterintuitive to actual productive work. So if you think about anything you're doing from a perspective of grip, that opens that up. So you're making less contact. So let's just kind of faux do that right now. What happens to our grip right there? Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm not sure if I can get you a better view. Even if I attempt to squeeze hard with my support side, it creates a problem and it creates a gap. So the best thing you can do for yourself is figure out a way, experiment, work with your grip, work with your Mary, so you have as much contact on the gun as possible. If you start really working that into your presentation, you'll start really getting to the point where you can feel and understand the most optimum way for you to do it. And then if you have a less than optimum presentation, you understand conceptually how to work through that. So we'll do a couple draws really quick, going through the concepts of marrying relatively close to the body, and then we'll kind of just inspect our grip and see what that looks like, see if we actually got it where we want it, or if there's some things that we can improve. So for me, let's do just a medium presentation speed. So we've got on the strong side, hand behind the gun, bone structure behind the gun, a good bit of contact. On the support side, I could probably dig that in there a little more. And what we can do is take our strong side off and say, okay, so I've got a little bit of hand on the back strap. I've got good contact on the support side. And that's one good way to kind of work through this. Just remove the strong side once you have a good grip, and then just take a peek at it and see what really you have. Where are like the spots that could bleed recoil or bleed forces. So like that, you can do that. So this one, not quite back as far as I was before. So why was that? Was that my strong side didn't give me a good spot there? Okay. So we'll try that from an entire presentation one more time. About the same. Not bad, not bad. And really, we just want to get to the point where we're understanding what that feels like and where everything is consistently. And are we happy with that? So let's pay attention really closely right now to what's happening, where that marrying is actually happening, close to the body. Good. And my sight picture is actually developing right about there. So about 70% of my presentation, so I have time to really refine. So just like with everything else, consistency is the key. Finding what works best for you with the least amount of upset and deviation. And that's how we get there, piece by piece, block by block. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is like an index point on the gun. And that makes a lot of sense. There's a few instructors out there that really kind of hone in and key in on that. What touching you, what part of the inanimate object touching you helps you know that you're in the right spot. So a lot of times that'll be the trigger guard to the index finger on the support side. And I'm perfectly fine with that. That makes perfect sense to me. Now what I do, it's more about the back of the hand making contact with the gun. So however that establishes itself, but how I know I really got it is when that happens. And I feel that right on that part of my hand. So there's no definitive right answer for that. It's really what resonates with you and helps you realize that you're in the right spot and really honing in on that and paying attention to that. But for me, it's right there. And I can almost, when I'm drawing fast, I can hear that when that support hand gets where it needs to be. I hope you guys can hear that. Almost where that's exaggerated, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. So while I'm right here, let's just do a couple draws before we wrap up. We'll do these at full speed. Okay. Okay. Two more. I had a little bit of tension on those first two, and that's a little much. And that's when you start getting lost in it and you want to start going fast and you want to start putting it away fast. I hope you guys can kind of start regulating yourself when that happens, recognize it's happening, and slow it down, because that's when we lose the ability to really analyze what we're doing. Yes, much better. Much better. So now I'm in it. Now I'm paying attention. Okay, so that support side grip a little bit forward, as you guys can see. So we want to correct that. The marry's happening when it's supposed to be happening. I'm just getting a little bit too much torque in my wrist. There we go. There we go. And it doesn't need to look fast. That's the thing as we go through all of this. The more herky-jerky the motion looks, the more apt you are to make a mistake in the presentation. So when it looks organized, more often than not, it's actually faster. So we're probably still looking at a 1 second, give or take, draw right there, but it doesn't look like spastic, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I have the mental aptitude to actually pay attention to what's happening throughout the motion to make sure I'm actually doing what I need to do. One more. All right, so hopefully that helps, folks. Next time we're going to really start digging into the dirt on how can we improve and quicken things up, efficiencies, things like that, and also be really, really stable versus bum, 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 and quaky. So thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.